Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. Professional Service Group of Mercer County is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. And in addition to good morning, happy Aloha Friday. And as I do every Friday, I am wearing my Aloha shirt. Unfortunately, it's not too cold, so I'm not wearing a long sleeve shirt. It's all short sleeve today, at least in my home. And so that's very comfortable for me. And coincidentally, or actually on purpose, I'm wearing my red Aloha shirt because today is National Wear Red Day. So it's a day that encourages us to wear red to raise awareness for heart disease in women. So that's the importance of National Wear Red Day. But sometimes it's just fun to wear something red. And so I'm happy to do it for both reasons. The Professional Service Group is a group that is here for anybody in a career transition. We are here to provide resources to you, programs, sometimes a little bit of entertainment, all to help you be more efficient and more effective in your own job search. And as I do remind people every week, we do have a LinkedIn group. It is called PSG of Mercer County. If you are visiting us today for the very first time, I invite you to go to LinkedIn, go to the group section, group search section, and search for our group to join. PSG of Mercer County. It's a little bit of a private group. It's not hidden. You can find it. So we didn't do that, but private. When we get a request for someone to join, I do check our attendance rolls, either to see if you attended a virtual meeting or one of our previous in-person meetings. What we're trying to do is keep out people that only attend our meetings to either because they just like joining groups and they don't really want to participate, or they're kind of salespeople looking to collect names. Nothing wrong if you're pursuing a career in sales, but we're just trying to keep the people out that want to join our group for their own game. And so we have over 1,690 members, 1,690 members, and they are all people that have been to at least one of our sessions. And so I think that adds value to the connections that you can earn in the group. I encourage you to contribute as a group member. Maybe you heard of a good or read a good article that's worth sharing, so put the link in there as a discussion. Maybe job leads. You might have gotten an email from someone you don't know about a terrific position that just doesn't apply to you. We've all gotten those, continue to get those. If you think it's a worthwhile job, copy the content of the email and paste it into the group discussion to share with others. And the other thing nice with all LinkedIn groups is even if you are not a first degree connection to all 1,690 people, by being a member in the same group, you have the opportunity to connect with them and communicate with them as if they're one of your first degree connections. So it really expands your professional network in LinkedIn. We do also have our website, psgofmercercounty.org. It is over 120 web pages of content. So there is a lot of information out there, and I do encourage you to take a look at it, use it as a job search resource. We do have a lot of resources that are there on our resources page. We have job postings, a few job postings, but we also have links to 2,600 companies in our open jobs pages. And we also, in our professional development tab, have links to 77 e-learning websites in our professional development tab. And so if you're thinking of looking for some new training, some new certifications, anything that could even just keep you occupied and busy while you are in your career search. But certainly learning and growing in that way is a very positive step to take while you're in job search. Now with those e-learning sites, a lot of them are even free. Or you don't have to have subscriptions. You can just order the 1 or 2 classes that are important. But it's not meant that they had to be all free, but one-stop shopping, 77 different e-learning websites that we've collected over the last months. So go take a look at that. In just a moment, I will turn this presentation over to Jeff. I'm so glad he is here today with us. And as a reminder, he will be presenting. He'll take over the screen and he will be presenting. There is no slide deck. This is a discussion. And so it is being recorded. So if there's a step or two or a point or two that he brings up that you didn't catch, you can catch it later. It will be on our YouTube channel. We have over 80 videos on our YouTube channel of prior meetings, so you can go take a look at that on our YouTube channel, which is also called PSG of Mercer County. And while you are not actively discussing or having a conversation with Jeff, I do ask for courtesy, just keep your microphones on mute so there's no accidental interruption. But if you want to ask a question, there's one of two ways you can do it. You can type the word question and then follow that with your question, and I will read it on your behalf. And Jeff may ask you to follow up, and you can unmute and speak with him then. Or just type the word question, again, the electronic equivalent of raising your hand. And when I see him taking a breath, I may just say, excuse me, Jeff, there's a question, and you can then speak with him directly. And the reason why we ask you to write the word question, there's a lot of other commentary that people put in the chat, and sometimes it gets lost, but the word question allows it to stand out a little bit better for me. I don't want to miss your question that may be very important to you. So I think we are all set to go, and I will say that PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome Jeff Altman. Jeff, also known as the Big Game Hunter, is a job search coach and interview coach, and he is a former executive recruiter. Jeff is the host of No BS Job Search Advice Radio, the #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts for job search, with more than 2,300 episodes, and it's on Job Search TV, YouTube, Amazon, and Roku. It's also is available on Apple TV and 90+ smart sets through bingenetworks.tv, bingenetworks.tv. PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome back the Big Game Hunter, Jeff Altman.
Thank you, and good morning, David. Good morning, everyone. Let me just clarify something. No BS Job Search Advice Radio is the podcast available through Apple Podcasts, Spotify as a video podcast, Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts. Job Search TV is my YouTube channel. If you use the .com, jobsearchtv.com, that will take you directly to the YouTube channel. You can watch over 7,000 videos about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, dealing with workplace issues. To me, I look at my work as a career coach holistically. It is about your career and being more effective. Today, I'm talking with you about salary negotiation mistakes. And I'll simply say, for me, I can cover a lot, but what's most important to me is that I support you in situations that you've been involved with, maybe make recommendations of things you might do differently, help you, if you're in a negotiation now, navigate situations and much more. So don't hesitate to ask questions or make comments. I want to address them so that we use this time in ways that serve you well. Okay? Now, let me just start by saying the new mistake that people are making, because we haven't needed to address this for a long time, is inflation as part of your negotiation. Inflation now is at 7%. That means that for you to take a position and just match inflation, most of you have to get a 10% raise just to match inflation. And it seems like there are a lot of people who are finding work these days, even though there is somewhat of a disconnect in the labor market. Today's jobs report came out, plus 450. Great numbers, great numbers. This is the first month of the year that the Bureau of Labor Statistics adds people into the report. In January, they take them out because they believe after Christmas, people get laid off from jobs they can't prove were ever created, from companies they don't know ever exist, but they've got this statistical approach that they work with. So this January is always a down month. This February is a plus month. Unemployment ticked up to 4%, and people are still landing. With that, as you negotiate, even in your, if you're working now and they come to you and say, good news, we're matching inflation. We're giving you a 7% raise. No one's doing that. They're trying to get away with 5, but no matter. you have to remember inflation's part of the landscape now. And 7% is actually on the low side. I say that because some years ago, they pulled things like gas prices out of the statistics and a few other things got pulled out that were particularly abhorrent to politicians. This is not about one party or the other. It was all politicians. And thus, the 7% number is low, but that's the one employers are going to work with. So again, you have to take inflation into consideration as part of your negotiation. So if you're offered the 5% raise or the, let's get it to, let's do the 7, we're going to do the 7 and match inflation. You're going to have to politely correct them and say, 7 doesn't quite do it, because if I accept the 7, remember, government's going to take out 40% of that between Social Security, federal taxes, state taxes. Forget about local real estate taxes. Everyone's taxes go up. So government takes a piece of everything. So just to match things, you have to look at it minimally 10 and then work from there to actually move ahead of the game. That makes sense? Only a few of you are on camera, so if it doesn't and you're on camera, give me a thumbs down. My feelings aren't hurt. Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's the first thing that I'm bringing to people's attention, because frankly, we haven't had to deal with inflation for many years. No matter who the president was beginning in 2008, Democrat, Republican, made no difference. Inflation's been a lot lower. So now it's gotten serious. And you need to be responsible to your friend, to yourself, and to your board, your wife, husband, partner, the kids, the dog, the cat, whomever is in your household. You have a responsibility as the chairman of the board of that organization to not lose sight of what serves you and your interests. And if this is with an existing organization, you try to negotiate it up, you nod, you become thankful, you say, thank you so much, I appreciate you making that correction, and take the 6% and then you go look elsewhere. Because otherwise, you're always running behind. I wish it were different, but someone will pay you and leapfrog you ahead of inflation just by changing jobs. And please remember, I used to be a recruiter. I'm not one anymore. I have no financial interest in what you do, nor am I going to try to solicit you so I make a big payday at the end by placing you at a client. So remember, you are the chairperson of the board of your own organization. And as such, you have a responsibility to your shareholders and yourself to not lose track of the financials. Okay, let's go to the next one. When people are talking with organizations, they sometimes mention money too soon. In the cover letter, they don't try to avoid answering questions in the applicant tracking system. And thus, the result winds up being systems or people prematurely screen individuals out without having an opportunity to evaluate and assess you. And the people who are doing it are not really equipped to evaluate you. They are corporate recruiters, agency recruiters. They are screeners. And like a screener in the Wild West, imagine California during the gold rush days. I've got my pan, I'm down in the river, I'm trying to find the gold that's in the water, right? And they're hoping that when they put the water in and they shake it, the gold will rise to the top. The only problem with most screeners is they don't know what gold looks like. As a result, you have to remember the goal is to get to the real decision maker. And the screener is there to filter you out. And thus, when the money conversations come up, your job is to, I don't want to say be evasive, but your job is to make it as clear to them as possible that whatever number you quote, you're not locked into. So, Jean, I hope I pronounced your first name correctly, whether it's John or Jean, what to do when expected salary field? What to do when the expected salary field is a required field? Perfectly valid question. So number one is you can fill it with some number and an asterisk that reflects what you're looking for. The asterisk becomes a signal to them that perhaps there's something more they need to talk about. Now, the conversation when you talk about it with them goes like this. You know, I had to put a number in, but I really don't know a lot about the position other than what was advertised. And the fact of the matter is, and I'm talking to you now, and you can say as much or as little as I'm about to tell you. Job descriptions are at best 80% accurate. And I say that because HR people laugh and they say, if we're lucky. And as a result, you have to look at this from the perspective of you have to protect your interests. They're forcing you to put a number down. So I haven't met my future boss. I have no sense of what expectations are like from them. I don't really know what my teammates would be like. So I may come back to you and say, yeah, that's the right number, or I need to go higher because what was described in the job description is nowhere near accurate. So, you know, you forced me to put something there. I put something there. Let's reconvene after I've had a couple of interviews if you want to do more interviews and go from there. So it's always about deflection, because when they, and especially now with certain localities specifying, Sam, I'm going to come to you in a second, and same as you, John. With certain localities now required to put salary ranges into ads, the numbers go like this: 50 to 120. You know, it's a huge range. And as such, remember, they're equivocating too. And you have to say, in much the same way as you did when you ran this ad at the broad range, you're going to evaluate and assess me and make a decision based upon how you perceive my value. And you may compare me with people internally to your organization. Well, I haven't had a chance to meet anyone or know fill in the blank. I've met my boss, don't have a sense of the real work. I've just seen a job ad and we're talking for 5 minutes so far before you're asking me what I'm looking for. So your job is to deflect. I hope that answered the question. John Sampson, do we or how do we put inflation into the interview offer dialogue? Excellent question, John. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can wait until the offer phase and use it to renegotiate and point out to them they came in low. That right now I'm just picking numbers at random. The math is simpler for me if I just say 100,000. And they've offered you 110. Okay, inflation's at 7, they're plus 3, they've matched inflation. And you can politely say, this is great, you've matched inflation. My current employer, at the time I give notice, may do the same thing. But I want to be able to join and feel good about it to do a touch better to beat inflation. That's one way to approach it. You can do it proactively, but I think that complicates things because you're going to be better informed than most people are. So to me, you always want to make them fall in love first before you get into the position of negotiating and bringing out the fallacy of their proposal. Anyone else have a different approach that they would use? I'm very happy to learn from you too. I may be an expert at a lot of things, but we're all learning with one another. So if you've got an idea about how to deal with this differently, I'm very happy to hear it as well, and I'm sure everyone else would. I'll pause, and we can circle back to that. Sam asks, follow up. Often there's no asterisk ability in the application. You're absolutely right. You could try TBD. I'm sure that it forces a numeric answer. And at the first interview, if there's no ability to put something to indicate this is not cast in stone, when they get to the conversation, like I did something on a site recently, and I put it, as a coach, I look for different avenues for work. And one was on a website where they priced the work I would do for them a little too low. So I put in what rate I would accept. So when they came to me with a confirmation, so you indicated you would accept whatever the rate was. I said, no, this is what I'm looking for. So you can put in the actual number. They can try persuading you down. There's lots of different ways to do this, but ultimately when you get to the conversation during the screening round, you have to come back with the equivocation statement. And you can say, again, I've met no one. I've just seen a job ad. Everyone tells me job ads are a good first cut, but there's a lot more. So I want to learn about that before I lock into a specific price. Again, without repeating myself from before, you lay out what's missing that you don't know. And that you're very happy to discuss it with them after you've had some conversations with your future manager, the team, have a clear idea of role responsibilities and expectations, so that in this way, you can be more accurate with them. By the way, the reason I don't use a slide deck is that people wind up reading and they don't wind up thinking and listening. I want it to be interactive. I really do want things in chat that I can address, and I want to get you fully present. And if you're going to read, you're not fully present. That's my opinion. And again, more questions, I'm very happy to address them. So the next thing that people do is over or undervaluing themselves. Now, people often get mediocre advice from their friends in the business because people tend to inflate what they're earning. No one wants to state a salary. Oh, I'm making 85,000, and I've got 25 years of experience. And no one wants to say stuff like that, and it's true because I used to get the resumes. You need to go to valid sources of information. Now, I don't think of Glassdoor as being one of those places because you tend to get polarizing comments from people. Sometimes some of the other legitimate salary sites do have accurate information, but when you talk to recruiters, I think they can be somewhat valuable in this regard. And they can give you a sense of where they see you in the market. And remember, they're going to try and talk you into a number because they've got a job that fits that range. So let's say you're interviewing at Amazon for the sake of argument. Amazon pays for what you do this salary. They're going to quote that salary to you. Is there any flexibility becomes the follow-up question. Let's see how they respond. And sometimes they can go a little higher. Really, how much? Just keep talking. Extract information from these resources and understand you may not be top of the range, but you want to hear what the real top of the range is. I say you may not be top of the range because you may not have world-class expertise. The reality to it. And you may hear what it is. You can always back down from a number if they say, they're kind of assessing you to this level. Is that okay? I'm curious, what makes them come to that conclusion? them talk. The more they talk, the more they reveal about how they're evaluating you. Because sometimes, I don't know if any of you heard my interview presentation, the interviewers are not particularly skillful. And they lead people down one road, for example, that suggests one thing when they wanted something else. And they leap to conclusions like all of us do about what someone has real expertise or capability in. So making them talk to clarify, especially agency recruiters, when you hear them start talking, well, they thought you were a little light in such and such. Really? How so? How so? Just make them talk, because they don't know. And all they're trying to do is they've gotten a signal from their client that this is the number they're thinking of. And they're going to try and persuade you to go to that number. So be proactive. Don't accept so readily what the recruiters are telling you, or even the corporate recruiter is telling you. Really? They thought I was a little light in such and such. How so? Because I got one question. I got two questions. How did I come to that conclusion? Do you know? Non-threatening, casual. Remember, it's not just what you say that matters. It's how you ask the questions and how you say things that makes you persuasive. So since so much is on camera these days, you need to be a performer. Really? How so? Really? How so? Use your voice and your facial expressions as a sales tool. It will allow them to not feel threatened and allow you to learn whether this person's just a tool of the organization or really has knowledge that's useful to you. You can accept or reject whatever they say at face value. Just because they think that way doesn't mean another firm won't think differently. Learn from them how you're being seen. And thus, when you get to the negotiation phase, and throw this back in your face, because they will, it's just part of the way it works, right? And say, it bothered me when you brought that to my attention previously, because it isn't true. They thought I was deficient in this. Really? 8 years of experience doing that, and they asked me one question and they came to a decision? Maybe I should talk with them again. Or if you get the expression from them, well, we only do 5% raises. Because firms are going to try that gambit, and they are trying that gambit now. We only do 5% raises. And it's the screener who's saying that to you. No, maybe it's time you look at things a little bit differently. Inflation's at 7. That means I need 10 just to break even. Maybe it's time to revisit that practice and not just accept it. Nancy asks, do you think there's, it kind of slid because Carol put in her pitch. Do you think there's a difference in how much salary you can negotiate with an internal company recruiter versus an agency recruiter? It's a good question. And the fact of the matter is company recruiters sometimes use agency recruiters to buffer for them. And as the buffer, they're exploring through that person to see if they can persuade you to consider less or consider a particular number. So it's always about how you respond to the situation. So is there a difference in how much salary you can negotiate with the internal person? Can't tell. Different firms conduct themselves differently. Different search firms deal with things differently. So I don't think there's a way I can answer that question that's useful. So whoever is the presenter to you, remember, it's always about pushing the envelope. for your benefit, because even with the corporate recruiters, they're pushing it for their institution's benefit. And it's not coming out of their pocket. It's coming out of the institution's pocket, and they're the messenger. Okay. I'm going to pause and go, any other questions while I'm here? Okay, I'm just scrolling through what's,
Yeah, scroll up. I'm just making sure that you saw one from Alex and Jean.
I just got to the one from Jean.
I read an article yesterday from a recruiter. Did you get to that one?
No, I didn't see that one. See that one? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you,
from
Alex.
and then Alex follows. Yep.
Okay, so thank you. I read an article yesterday from a recruiter that posited that candidates who do not offer a salary in the screening process are screened out. Any thoughts on how to approach these situations where the equivocation statement would not work? You can always cave in. You can always back down. But the truth of the matter is what you're saying is very reasonable. You're learning something about them, from their behavior. And that's always something to remember. And this isn't about the great resignation and the labor shortages. This is about human-to-human contact. If they're going to, and this is the way I view it now, bully you at this phase, imagine what's going to happen when you're on board. Bullying is going to be part of the repertoire because they're going to push employees around. Now, that doesn't mean you don't accept it, but you've learned something and you can make choices and not go in with, blinders on, oblivious to how they conduct themselves. Just like they're observing you to figure out whether you would fit their organization behaviorally, well, you need to learn from them to see if they fit your desires and how the kind of work environment you want to be involved with, because you're going to be the one who's going to have to live there. Let me go to Alex's question. Let me find it again. My apologies. There we go. How can one find out what his real value is in the market? There's no simple answer because there's lots of variations. It's why I tend to think of ranges. So for example, when I did search and we talk about a Java developer, millions of types of Java developers. There's so many different permutations of that. What are the wage scales in your firm? You know that. You know people who've worked elsewhere. What are the wage scales in those organizations? Those are more realistic. You come to groups like this. You ask questions. You find people with comparable backgrounds. You share information. It's not cast in stone. There is a supply and demand component of it. And you start to notice how anxious the hiring manager is to hire someone. It causes you to push the number up, right? The corporate recruiter is always going to try and talk you down. They'll ask questions like, so what would you say the rock bottom base salary is, exclusive of bonus, you'd find acceptable to join the organization? Rock bottom? Really? It comes like this? With labor shortages? Really? Oh yeah, we're seeing lots of people, but you haven't hired anyone. Obviously seeing lots of the wrong people. So let's go on a date first before you start persuading me I should accept a smaller dowry. Let's figure out if this makes sense for both of us and come back to that question later on. Deflect, 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 because it serves you. And they may not like the deflection. And again, I come back to the premise of you're learning something about them. Everything that you do and say communicates something to them. Job applicants are trained to be obedient girls and boys, and that doesn't serve you. And nothing I'm saying so far is designed to be loud and obnoxious. What? Are you kidding me? We're not going down that road. Everything is very reasonable. Everything is reasonable. And you're being a human being talking to another human being. You will learn a lot from them. And as you start to get multiple offers, as will happen, you'll have choices to make and leverage to exert at the time you receive the offers. Because many of you tend to think, I'm only getting one offer. I don't think so. Many of you are going to receive multiples. And with the multiples, you can play one off against the other. So coming down, scrolling down, bear with me, I have to come to Jean or Jean's next question.
John,
thank you very much. Can you share the myth on what recruiters say when they assert that they are advocating for you when asking for salary requirements? So, having been a recruiter for as many years as I was, initially we communicate what you told us. Now, if we know the range can be higher, I know I would go for a higher number and say, maybe a little flexibility if necessary, but most of them aren't having the conversation directly. That comes once there's an expression of interest. When they're doing a submission of a candidate, many of them are doing electronically by submitting a resume to their system that's designed to screen out who's been previously submitted, who's previously in their systems, etc. So they too are buffered, just like you're buffered. Sometimes, I'll use Bloomberg as an example. If a firm is asking you for the last 4 digits of your social security number, it's because they've seen so many people in their system, the names are redundant, and the last 4 digits of social becomes a way that they can differentiate between one John Sampson and another. So they're looking for ways that they can figure out who's who. So in the presentation phase, that's how it's done. Now, when they're at, whoa, I'm not sure who that's from, but that was painful. So when they're advocating, it may be during the offer phase. And in the offer phase, they say they're advocating more often than not, they're listening. What are you thinking of? I'm not sure that's going to work. Could you try? Okay, I'll try. And they come back, and I know I did this for quite a few years. I'm going to have a conversation at 4 o'clock today with you, and I'm going to want to negotiate the offer for you. Now, I want to do a parameter test with you to see what would be feasible for you. So hypothetically, let's say they made an offer of 100. Would you say yes? Great. Whatever they say, let's say they'd say yes. Great. How about 95? Less good, but I'd say yes. Great. 92.5. And we're listening for when you push back. The way to shortcut this is pretty simple. We're going to parameter test. Really, let's cut to the chase. What are they thinking of in the way of the number? Let's go right to it instead of doing the parameter test. What have they been talking with you about in the way of an offer? Cut through the noise, get to the reality. Or you can also play along and know that this is what the game is. It's your choice. Depends on what your personality is like as to what you think you can do. But that is the game. When they're trying to see what your rock bottom base salary is, exclusive of bonus, you'd find acceptable to join their client, they're looking for where you start resisting. And they're working up from there. Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else in chat so far. Scrolling through.
Yeah, Alan has a question.
I found it.
Yep.
After you get an offer, do you negotiate salary and benefits together or separately? Now, you have the offer. And my first response is if they're both wrong. rather than respond right then and there, I want to make sure you're composed, because they've done this a lot more than you have. So my thinking is, you hear the offer and you go, huh, and let the silence do the work. Huh. I'd like to think about it. Can I get back to you the day after tomorrow or on Monday? If it's a Friday, something along those lines. Now, this makes them nervous. So now you've gotten their attention because they want to close this out. Remember, squeezing you is only part of the game. The other part is the person who's making the offer is generally a screener. It's normally the corporate recruiter or the agency recruiter. You can do that sound again with either or anyone who's making the offer to you. Can I get back to you? Well, what do you think? You could probably tell by my reaction, I'm not thrilled. But I don't want to respond right away. So give me a day after tomorrow to think about it. I promise I'll circle back to you. Is there a particular time on your calendar where I could speak with you? Set up something so you're demonstrating sincerity. And then the day after, when you get back to them, I would start with the benefits, particularly something easy for them to concede to. Something that's an easy win for them. Makes them think, oh, this is going to go pretty well. And then you can actually cycle through different things until you get to the salary. And then when you get to the salary, I've been talking with other firms at different levels than this. And I really do like this opportunity. I want to be clear. I want to bring this to a successful conclusion. Could you do a touch better? That's the easiest thing to say to them. Could you do a touch better? Like how much better? Like you made an offer of 100. Could you do 110? Push them to something. And sound sincere. Remember, it's not the words exclusively that matter. It's your tone of voice that signals things to them that allow them to think, I don't want to get into trouble. She seems like she's going to say yes if we get her the 110. So if I got you 110, would you say yes? Yeah, given the other things we've discussed, yes, I would. Great. I'll be back to you later in the day. You'll get the 110. But start with the benefits first, with something that it's going to be easy for them to concede to, and thus work from there, eventually cycling back to salary. And know that certain things are not negotiable. Someone in another group asked me about negotiating profit sharing. It's not negotiable. Restrictive stock units can be negotiable with certain organizations. So you can try and negotiate the RSUs. A sign-on, of course, especially if they don't accede to your financial request to increase the offer. That comes from a different budget item. Never hesitate to get some accommodation that allows you to get the money. Now remember, I'm just saying this to you folks now. When they're giving it to you as a sign-on, your next raise is coming on the basis of base salary, not the base salary and bonus, or base salary and sign-on. So remember that in your decision-making. But it's a fallback that lets you get the money now, because you can always change jobs again. Don't worry about it. I'm seeing Alex with another question. Alex, I'm counting on you. Pre-COVID salaries were adjusted geographically. California paid higher because of the cost of living. However, now with work from home, geographical location is no longer important. What can I share about that? So I'll use the example of Google, because I have one of my wife's nephews works for Google. He's in DC. They hired him, pandemic occurs, stay home, stay home. So now there's talking with him about coming to California. He's gotten engaged. So different organizations are dealing with pandemic issues different. So in the course of your interviewing, you're going to learn a lot about what their expectations are, right? And one of the things that's going to surface is this a work from home role? Is this a permanent work from home role? Do you have an expectation of returning to the office? What's been the discussion about that? This should shape your thinking. If it's a permanent work from home role and you're in New York and they're in California, well, what's the difference in your cost of living? It's not radically different. Same thing with Seattle. And for me, who's in Asheville, North Carolina, if they were trying to persuade me to come up to New Jersey or New York, there's a cost of living difference that exists for me. Clearly, housing costs are different. I have to get a place up there. Sell my place here, buy it up there. It's going to cost me. You have to work that into the equation and communicate that along the way. Gee, and remember, this may cost you the offer. And that's okay, because someone else will hire you. That's the thing many of you don't remember. Someone else will hire you. It may not be this firm. Your search may go on a little bit longer than you would prefer, but someone else will bring you on board. And remember, don't allow yourself to be bullied at any point. If it's not good for you, you're better off simply saying, you know, what I'm hearing you say is you have an expectation that a month from now I'm going to have to move to fill in the blank, and work from home is going to end. So let's look at what cost of living differences are between the area and who's going to pay for that. Oh, we're not paying anything. Thank you. That makes my choice easier. I wish you well. And walk away. If you're not prepared to walk away, what can you do to ameliorate the financial hardship that the move is going to cost? Because there is a difference in cost of living between where I am in Asheville, North Carolina, and where you are in Parsippany, New Jersey, or Princeton, New Jersey. And listen, to get back to you, I'd really appreciate that. Notice the sincerity in my tone of voice. Remember, there's a theater to all of this. In the interviewing, I talk about the theater of interviewing, where you want to convey certain things, not just the data, but use your voice as a tool to express how you feel. I hope you can sense in my voice that I'm communicating sincerity, because that is what I'm trying to do now. I use a softer tone of voice, slightly longer pauses to do that. You can practice that ahead of any conversation about compensation. And just like I talk about with interviewing, you need to rehearse how you're going to respond to things and not just walk in cold to these conversations. That's another one of the mistakes, by the way. You don't practice saying the things when you're getting to negotiation phase. You think them in your head and you think that's enough, but the words need to come out of your mouth. And you can work with someone from the group, perhaps, to play the obnoxious HR person, the obnoxious agency person, the obnoxious hiring manager, with that tone of voice that basically is giving you a scowl. And in responding to the scowl, you don't buy in. Remember that earlier example I gave? Well, maybe this should be the first time you go above 5%. I know you haven't really evaluated me yet. Maybe this should be the first time you exceed 5%. It's all casual, no anxiety. It goes to another mistake people make. their anxiety comes through in their voice. The anxiousness communicates something to people. John, I'm going to come to you in a second. The anxiety communicates what they got you. And you don't want them to get you. Because once they have you, they're going to become more inflexible. Let me come back to questions here. It looks like John is the next one. I recently had a situation where the application process required disclosing how much I wanted to earn. However, the hiring manager started the interview with, I don't think we can pay the salary you're requesting. We can pay X with a bonus component. Is this negotiation tactics? Sometimes, most of the time, but they haven't had a chance to evaluate and assess you. How do they know that you're not worth the real number? Now, why ask for the salary up front then? They saw something in your background. They were willing to take a shot. Now, hopefully you didn't travel to their offices to have this conversation. That's one of the good things about what's going on now, is you at least do this where you don't have to drive somewhere most of the time. If you're driving somewhere to have your time wasted, it's just such an insulting behavior on their part. And again, that's a message. David put my mobile number in for text and my email address. Don't call me because often I'm coaching other people or I'm recording content. Text me in advance. We'll set up a time to speak. Okay. I've got a scheduling link through my website, thebiggamehunter.us. You can always get on my calendar for a free discovery call for 30 minutes. And I'll answer questions there. Hopefully this isn't just an opportunity to milk me for everything I know, and you're sincerely interested in my coaching you, and I'll answer some questions. Give me the courtesy of letting me know that that's what it's about.
Feng has a question.
I was just scrolling up because I had seen that.
Yep, okay.
Interviewing for a position that requires physical presence on site in the office. Can you suggest an argument for higher pay for the COVID risk? Any data to substantiate the risk? I haven't looked for data. That's the fact of it. I haven't looked for it, nor would I look for it. You guys need to look out for yourself in this regard. So it begs the question of, why would you apply for something that's going to require regular in-office appearances if you're not interested in that? I did a video recently about remote work. I don't recall the title, but if you go to jobsearchtv.com, I know it's one of the recent videos I released, like in the last 3 days. David, you have that look like you're going to go look for it. And if you don't find it easily at my website, there's a search option in the blog. I think it involves, the word would be remote or remote work that you could do the search by. But you can always, and remember, they don't have to agree to anything. Just like you don't have to agree to anything. But the idea is to say, you're asking me to come into the office. Like, okay, I'm gonna out myself. I'm in my 70s at this point. And if someone wanted me to come into the office to do work, on a regular basis, I got a problem with that because Lord knows I fit a demographic. I'm a more at-risk person. On your side, if you're a more at-risk person, you bring that into the equation. And thus what you're able to do is speak with them with sincerity, knowing full well they may not agree. Is there a particular reason you want people in the office? And they'll give you the usual BS line about, oh, the teamwork, the interplay. It's control. We know that. They think they have more control if you're in the office. I've been working from home now for 2 years. I've been working for my current firm for 2 years remotely. That has saved a lot of money. I have to bring that into the equation if you're going to have me in the office 5 days a week. the COVID risk, the commutation, the time. You get more out of me from home, to be honest with you, because I don't work 9 to 5 from home. I tend to work 8 till 5:30 or whatever it is. But it's your choice. You want me in the office? It's a premium offer I have to deal with that. And they may say no, and that's okay. You always have to be prepared to walk away so that you're not bullied into something you really don't want to do. Then I asked clarification on work in office. Some of us working in construction cannot work from home. You're absolutely right. So I'm not sure the nature of the work that you're doing that would allow you to work from home. Clarification might help me. If it's an office job, working from home, I get that. And you can say, I'm curious, what do you think makes it better for me to be in the office doing the same thing I could log in remotely to do that you've had someone else do for the last 2 years remotely? I'm just curious. And listen to what they say and make a decision. Someone wrote to me privately, I don't know if they want to be identified, how not to feel at a disadvantage in returning to the workforce after years of inactivity. And I don't want to say anything that might be confidential here. So your network is important when you've been out of the workforce for a while. So start off with the premise of reconnecting with people that you've worked with previously. Hi, how are you? It's been a couple of years now. Yeah, the kids are now grown. It's time. I'm thinking about getting back to work. This is female and male. There have been a lot of guys who've been taking care of kids at home while their wives have been writers, authors, and a variety of other professions where they've been on point for the family. So, time for me to get back. What's been going on? Could you bring me up to date on things that have changed since the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Have a social conversation first. Start off learning what you don't know, rather than discovering it on an interview. Sometimes you will find that that person you used to work with says to you, there's something here that might work for you. Or my wife, husband, partner just mentioned something to me a week ago. Let me check with them and circle back. Talk to people from your past as your launch point. That's always the best way. You may need to get remedial education to deal with how things have changed over the last 5 years. You want to be able to prove it's not such a big leap for you getting back into the workforce after a couple of years away. Remember, from their standpoint, you're not a safe hire because you don't follow the typical pattern. And thus they worry about how deficient is this person? Where are the skills gaps? Just so they know. So that becomes your launch point, and that kind of signals other things about what next steps to be. I think COVID is past tense. A lot of companies are planning to come back on site as soon as March and as late as May. I think it'll be May, April, only because there's another one that's coming. That's another Omicron variant. So they may play it safe, but they're going to work on getting people back into the office. It's just the way it is. And they may revert come the fall, because the way this thing seems to be working is when we're indoors more, it's more active. That's why Florida during the summer, it's too hot for people to be outside. Why in the Northeast and other cold weather places, it tends to surge during the winter months. So we will see what we will see. They're going to broach all sorts of things with you. And thus, you have to do what's right for you. and bring up sensitive conversations or address difficult conversations with them in ways that serve you, because they may cave if they identify you as the best person. David says, David Monfort says, conventional advice is to avoid or delay the salary conversation until later in the process. If one doesn't want to waste time pursuing a position that is below their range, what would you advise? I find that most salary conversations come up with the screener. And you may not have been around at the beginning when I addressed this. The screener is going to want to tie you into a number early, or you want to only commit to a number late. So if you're being pushed into a number by the screener, a big smile comes onto your face and you go, yeah, I understand that you want to lock me into a number. But the fact of the matter is, I know nothing more than what's been in this job, the job ad. I haven't met my future boss, don't know the team, don't have a sense of the expectations, what I'm going to be asked to step into other than what I'm reading, which most of the time is incompletely accurate. So can we circle back to this later on? And that becomes the way you deflect it. Remember, they want to tie you in early. You want to make a commitment late. David, how much more do you want me to cover? How much more time?
Well, we certainly are not time bound, but maybe another 10 or 15 minutes if you can.
I could do 10, okay?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Terrific. So at approximately a quarter after.
Yeah, and then folks, keep that in mind as well. If you've got a question or two, you'll want to ask it sooner before later. And of course, when we wrap up, we're going to be hanging around the meeting room with the recording off a little later. Thank you.
And you have ways of getting in touch with me, so don't hesitate, okay? Hey, so far I've covered about 7% of my presentation. This is fabulous.
Yeah, there's a lot of curiosity, a lot of activity from us, and so I'm glad you're able to customize then the program just for our needs. Thank you.
You're welcome. One of the things I realized when I came up with this idea is how few presentations there are about salary and salary negotiation. And the first 2 times I've done this, I got to maybe 10, 15% of what I have prepared. I have a video course about this that you can find out about through my website. It's inexpensive because that's the way I price everything, is inexpensively. So I think it's listed as $25, but Udemy often offers discounts for it. So it's usually under 20 on their website. You can go there directly, thebiggamehunter.us. I think it'll be on the final slide that will get thrown up. Thebiggamehunter.us / catch this one, folks, salary oops, OOPS. And that's where the full presentation is. Acting desperate. Kind of like in dating. If someone acts desperate, suddenly you want to slow them down, right? Oh, slow down, please. Yeah, much too aggressive here. Let's get to know one another first. Well, if you're the anxious one, it's a turnoff to them as employers. Their thinking is, and I don't agree with it because I helped to create this myth in the market. They have a myth that passive job applicants are superior to active ones. I helped to create this myth because I couldn't afford, I'll give you an idea how long ago this was, I couldn't afford big New York Times ads in the financial section. So I came up with this idea that said, I find the best person available, not the best one who sees your ad on Sunday in the financial section or in the classifieds of the New York Times. My goal is to find the best one available. And frankly, that person isn't reading the Times on Sunday. They're not looking at it for a job. And this is what you're up against. So from the standpoint of how you present yourself as anxious, no one likes desperate people during dating. Not a long time for me. No one likes desperate people when you're dating. No one likes desperate people when you're job hunting. And you may feel desperate, but you need to contain that and not show it. You have to kind of look cool, relaxed. I don't want to say completely hard to get. You want to appear interested, but you don't want to seem so desperate. Anxious. I really need this job. I want this job. You make an offer like, now I've been here for 5 minutes. I want the job. No. You understand how the game is played. And job hunting and interviewing and dating are very similar. The desperate person goes home by themselves. The anxious person in a job interview most of the time is rejected. So when you're getting to salary negotiations, they become less flexible the easier you make it seem that you're going to be to join. The more desperate you are, the less flexible they're going to need to be, because they believe they got you. Conversely, if you treat negotiations like it's a cage match, and it's like an MMA battle, and it's a war, I got to win the war, and you got nothing to give up to them, then you're going to lose, because even if you get the money, they're going to hate you once you're on board. I remember, this is going back a lot of years. I had a total compliance IRS audit the first year I started my first business. I had a home office in the West Village, and there was an IRS agent there every Friday for 6 months. Catch that one. He's going through every detail. My accountant comes to me toward the end of this and goes, he's being transferred and wants to close out the case. You got anything you can give him? So he feels like he got something from you for all this time he spent on Friday afternoons so he could go home early. I said, my cable TV bill. Now I used it legitimately for certain purposes, but I said, how about my cable bill? Great. At that time, it was $50 a month, so it's no big deal. Remember, it was the old days, it's the 80s. So I gave him the cable bill. He goes, cable bill? Reject! It cost me $150. I was okay with that, versus everything else he was looking for. So if you've got something that you can concede at this particular point in the negotiation, give them something so they feel like they won, but you're going to win bigger. I have 1 or 2 more points, unless there are questions, and then I'll wrap it up. Listening to your aunt or uncle for advice, who they think they're the expert on everything, but they're telling you what to do, but the last time they looked for a job, Ronald Reagan was president. And there are those situations where you have family members who know nothing, who are telling you what you should do and how you should job hunt. You should go to their offices and try and meet with them without an appointment. That'll show them you really care and you want to work there. Like, people are going to let you into their offices, right? How does that work? Like, have you noticed that there's security in all these buildings? And when it comes time to negotiation, they've got opinions too. And they're so 1970s, maybe. Maybe they're 70s if you're lucky. Some of them were even older than that. So when all is said and done, listen to people who have some real knowledge. And you got people like that in this group. And there are other people who you know who are actually knowledgeable. Let me just wrap by saying, I'm sorry, let me come to Alex's question now. Because work location is no longer relevant, American jobs in danger. Companies can hire from India for, that's a 30-year-old question. Actually, jobs are coming back. The question is labor. Is there adequate labor? I've tended to think that, I'm not being political here, I just want to be clear. The thing about the southern border is about getting low-cost labor to do those kind of jobs that, you know, we've all seen people work in stores. The boomer generation is starting to retire. They don't want to stand in Walmart as greeters. They're being forced to do that if they need a few dollars. But there are people coming across the southern border who can do certain jobs that the boomers are disappearing from. I speak as one myself. So recognize that following the baby boom is the baby bust, Gen X, a very small population. So there are jobs that will need to be done by people who are in this country who may have crossed the southern border or have immigrated here. This has been my premise for why this is all going on, beyond simply who they're going to vote for. I think there's an economic reason for this. Going past that, companies can hire from India for a fraction of the US salary, yes, but they got to deal with time zones, and they don't like that. And there are people, the millennial generation is more complicated than the boomers. Gen Z and the boomers are kind of alike in their work attitude, but the millennials and Gen X don't want to put up with that crap. So for the foreseeable future, we have labor shortages, and it may take a few years before we start to get into balance as Gen X starts to move into their 60s and start aging out of the workforce, as the boomers are starting to do. By the way, when they talk about the labor shortages, they talk about 3.5 million deficient people in the market, or people who've disappeared. 2.5 million retired. It's 1 million that have not returned yet. So we have a complicated economic climate, and the long and the short of it is we don't know with certainty how things are going to shake out. And for those of you who are in white-collar professions, your skills are going to be important, your flexibility and your adaptability to change is going to be important, your ability to anticipate trends is going to be important. Whoever our next president will be, I suspect there's going to be a push toward bringing jobs back stateside. And I don't think we'll come in with this presidency for reasons I don't want to go into, but it's not about you. Your job is to get a job that you want to be in and earn the kind of money and do the kind of work that you want to, that lays a foundation for yourself and your future. If you have more for me, again, you can contact me. My email address is in chat. We can set up a time to speak. I'll forward a scheduling link to you. There's a ton in my blog at thebiggamehunter.us. There are more than 12,000 posts there that you can watch, listen to, or read that I've created over the years that will help you with job search, hiring, management, leadership. Thank you for putting that in, David. It's there. Text me rather than call, because if I'm coaching, I'm not taking a phone call. And unless you're on my phone, I don't take phone calls. I return calls. I think all of us do that these days, unless you still have a landline, dealing with all the robocalls. But no matter, I'd love to help you further. Is the slide available, Kathy, that I sent to you that you're able to put up on the screen?
I didn't see that just yet, so.
No, I can pull that up, Jeff. Just give me a minute, or I'll send it to you, David, because if you're in a better position to do that.
What is it, a contact info slide?
Yeah, with a couple of courses I have available on my website and all the other stuff. So I'll just simply say the skills needed to find a job.
Yep. And I'll also post that slide with the link to the video, so it'll be on our website if people want to download it later.
Great. The skills needed to find a job are different than those needed to do a job. Salary negotiation, and again, I got to very little of my presentation. I wanted to make sure that I covered your questions. Salary negotiation, they have an advantage because they do it much more frequently than you guys do. Thus, learning the pitfalls of the negotiation are important for you so you don't hurt yourself and your candidacy. And remember, right now you're in a market where you are advantaged. They're not going to let you in on that secret, but you read enough and there's a disconnect. I mentioned the 450,000 jobs created. I interviewed someone recently for my YouTube channel and podcast, and we described it as being like an 8th grade dance. There's a disconnect between what each side is looking for, and no one crosses over to the other side. So when they want you, they want you. They don't want to keep dating. They want you. You checked out as the best that they've seen. They want you. They don't want number 2. So remember that in these conversations, and don't be arrogant, but just don't give away your power prematurely. I'm complete. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being such a supporter, continued supporter for PSG of Mercer County. Obviously, it's your mission and passion to help job seekers, but I'm so glad that you are friendly with our group, and you're always welcome. And I really appreciated, this was a nice, frank discussion. It wasn't just the type of presentation where the presenter is kind of talking just at us, but Jeff really customized this for the specific questions that we had this morning, and it was so nice to be able to be a part of that presentation. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. So Hedley Lamar comments, do Jeff Quickies wear pith helmets? Yes, they do. And thank you for the thank yous. Connect with me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/the-big-game. Nancy, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words, and hope to see you folks again soon.
Yep, and I did post again just a moment ago Jeff's contact information. I removed the word phone, just left the word text. That's a preference, and did remind you that his website also has a button, actually on most of the pages, to schedule time with him, and that's a very convenient way to get his time. And actually, that's what you and I first used to reconnect. So a very helpful tool to be able to do that. So feel free to reach out to Jeff, and of course, any of the people that are our supporters. And as for other people who are our supporters, let me just let you know who's visiting us next week and what we have coming up over the next couple weeks. Next week, Ed Hahn will be here. Ed Hahn is a LinkedIn guru. He's also an internal or corporate recruiter, and he will be speaking on Search Like a Recruiter. So that's really powerful, because if you understand how recruiters are looking for job seekers, then you can also improve the opportunity to connect with recruiters. So next week, Ed Hahn will talk about Search Like a Recruiter. And then the following week, February 18th, Tony Calabrese will be here. Your professional assessment. And so a lot of times we are not really aware of just our value and the tools that we have to offer and the positions that we are best able to seek or that are right for us. And so if you do really your own assessment as objectively as possible, you'll actually improve the opportunity to find positions that are just right for you. So that's what we have coming up the next couple of weeks. Now, of course, on our website, PSG of Mercer County, we do have an events calendar. And so we are booked several months in advance. So you may want to look at our event calendar to see the programs that are coming up in the coming weeks and the presenters, because you may want to not miss certain topics or people who are presenting, and so put that date on your event calendar. There's no obligation to be here every week with us, but you're welcome to, but there may be certain dates you just don't want to miss, and we give you that heads up. So who and what's coming up in other groups and our other friends? Next week, next Saturday, we will be meeting, the Breakfast Club of New Jersey will be meeting, the Breakfast Club NJ, the Breakfast Club NJ. So that's February 12th. And Sharon Busey will be presenting Enterprise Agility, Current and Emerging Career Opportunities. So that's something that you may want. Remember, they are 8 o'clock in the morning, but they are also free to attend, thebreakfastclubnj.com. New Jersey Job Seekers meets virtually each Tuesday evening. I'm sorry, alternating Tuesday evenings, the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month at 7:30 in the evening. It's a long web address, so I did post that in our LinkedIn group. I will put that in chat in just a moment, and you're welcome to join on Tuesday at 7:30 in the evening. What's nice with that group, there are one of a number of facilitators that do organize that meeting, and this Tuesday happens to be me, and we just have open discussions of whatever you're interested in talking about. Also, some of our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, will be meeting on Monday at 10:30 in the morning, psgcnj.biz, and PSG of Morris County will be meeting on Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning, psgmc.org. So that's what's coming up in the couple of weeks. And once again, we will be keeping the meeting room open for just a little bit longer, but of course we will be turning off the recording. So I do hope you stay warm and safe this weekend. I understand it'll be cold and icy, so certainly be careful if you are in one of the icy zones. And but until we get to see you again, either in person or virtually, we'll simply say bye, everybody.